Morning. Today's reading is from Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah by Richard Bach. There was a master come unto the earth, born in the holy land of Indiana, raised in the mystical hills east of Fort Wayne. The master learned of the world in the public schools of Indiana, and as he grew in his trade as a mechanic of automobiles. But the master had learnings from other lands and other schools, from other lives that he had lived. He remembered these, and remembering became wise and strong, so that others saw his strength and came to him for counsel. The master believed that he had power to help himself and all mankind. And as he believed, so it was for him, so that others saw his power and came to him to be healed of their troubles and their many diseases. The master believed that it is well for any man to think upon himself as the Son of God. And as he believed, so it was. And the shops and garages where he worked became crowded and jammed with those who sought his learning and his touch. And the streets outside with those who longed only that the shadow of his passing might fall upon them and change their lives. It came to pass, because of the crowds, that the several foremen and shop managers bid the master leave his tools and go his way, for so tightly was he thronged that neither he nor other mechanics had room to work upon the automobiles. So it was that he went into the countryside, and people following began to call him Messiah and worker of miracles. And as they believed, it was so. If a storm passed as he spoke, not a raindrop touched a listener's head. The last of the multitude heard his words as clearly as the first, no matter lightning nor thunder in the sky about. And always he spoke to them in parables. And he said unto them, within each of us lies the power of our consent to health and to sickness, to riches and to poverty, to freedom and to slavery. It is we who control these, and not another. And it came to pass, when he saw that the multitude thronged him the more day on day, tighter and closer and fiercer, when he saw that they pressed him to heal them, to learn from them, and to live their lives, he went about that day unto a hilltop apart, and there he prayed. And he said in his heart, infinite radiant is, if it be thy will, let this cup pass from me. Let me lay aside this impossible task. I cannot live the life of one other soul, yet 10,000 cry to me for life. I'm sorry I allowed it all to happen. If it be thy will, let me go back to my engines and my tools, and let me live as other men. And a voice spoke to him on the hilltop, a voice neither male nor female, loud nor soft, a voice infinitely kind. And the voice said unto him, not my will, but thine be done. For what is thy will is mine for thee. Go thy way as other men, and be thou happy on earth. And hearing, the master was glad and gave thanks, and came down from the hilltop humming a little mechanic song. And when the throng pressed him with its woes, beseeching him to heal for it, and learn for it, and feed it non-stop from his understanding, and to entertain it with his wonders, he smiled upon the multitude, and said pleasantly unto them, I quit. For a moment the multitude was stricken dumb with astonishment. And he said unto them, if a man told God that he wanted most of all to help the suffering world, no matter the price to himself, and God answered and told him what he must do, should the man do as he is told? Of course, master, cried the plenty. It should be pleasure for him to suffer the tortures of hell itself, should God ask it. No matter what these tortures, nor how difficult the task. Honor to be hanged, glory to be nailed to a tree and burned, if so be it that God has asked, said they. And what would you do, the master said unto the multitude, if God spoke directly to your face and said, I command that you be happy in the world as long as you live. What would you do then? And the multitude was silent. Not a voice, not a sound was heard upon the hillsides, across the valleys where they stood. And the Master said unto the silence, in the path of our happiness shall we find the learning for which we have chosen this lifetime. So it is that I have learned this day, and choose to leave you now to walk your own path as you please. And he went his way through the crowds and left them, and he returned to the everyday world of men and machines. One second here. Good morning. That was from Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah by Richard Bach. For Christians, Ascension Day celebrates the day on which the risen Christ, in the sight of his apostles, ascended bodily into heaven. Christians celebrated this year on Thursday, May 21st, or was it Sunday, May 24th? Well, apparently different dioceses celebrate Ascension Thursday, 40 days after Easter, or Ascension Sunday, which is 43 days after Easter. Sort of sounds like Ascension Week to me. Saturday, June 20th, is summer solstice, or the day when the sun reaches its highest point in the sky. To me, the meaning of summer solstice also sounds like ascension. The sun has ascended to the highest point possible in its journey. So it feels like we're in the midst of an ascension month. And what better way to celebrate ascension than to talk about a savior? The definition that I found for savior is someone who saves something or someone from danger, harm, failure, etc. So I guess a savior could be someone who saves someone else from walking out in front of a bus, or someone who yells duck if a golf ball is heading towards you. But for today's purposes, we're going to come to it from a higher level. Although, let it be known, I'm all for you stopping somebody walking out in front of a bus or avoiding being hit in the head by a golf ball. Throughout recorded time, there have been numerous savior gods. To name just a few: Thor, Zeus, Vishnu, Horus, Heracles, Shiva, Dionysus, Tammuz, and of course the one that I'm most familiar with, Jesus. Some of them have been historical figures and some have been mythical. Many of us on our spiritual journeys have been visited by these energies, the energies that are these figures. Whether Buddha has appeared in a meditation, or Jesus, or Dionysus, these energies are still helping to guide us. But sometimes we get confused about what they're guiding us to, because we've made them into those who will save us, instead of understanding they are teachers, guiding us to understand that we are our own saviors. When Reverend Sue taught us the course on homiletics, or how to write and deliver a homily, one of her rules was that we're not supposed to use the process of writing the homily as part of the homily. And since I apparently like to break the rules, here I go. Don't turn me in, Tom. Don't tell. I sometimes get a little panicked by my approach to writing. No matter how long I have to get something completed, it seems like it always gets written the day before. Well, on paper anyway. But technically, I spend almost every moment before the pen hits the paper building the concepts in my head. So I'd been brewing, for want of a better term, this homily for the last couple of weeks. I had the reading, then I had my title. But what did it all mean? So last week, as I was contemplating, a line from one of my old automatic writing notebooks suddenly popped into my head. Spirit had told me through automatic writing, you are going to have to fight for the greatest of all souls. Now, this line come up really early in my journey, and I still really had a lot to learn. At the time, I fell back to my Catholic roots. Because to me, the greatest of all souls had to belong to Jesus, right? And I spun this story about the return of Jesus and him not understanding who he was and me needing to help him understand or fight for his soul. But when this line returned to me last week, I suddenly realized what it meant. The greatest of all souls is mine, or yours for you. The greatest of all souls, the one that you have control over. As soon as I hit this revelation, I started hearing Whitney Houston's The Greatest Love of All playing in my head. And I laugh because it's there now. Every time I have revisited this concept from that point last week that it appeared to me, that song has started playing again. So maybe that early message that I received from Spirit is something that I need to have framed somewhere. Because I may have received the most important message right at the beginning of my journey. We are each here to be our own savior, to save the most important soul of all, our own. So how do we find our savior? How do we strengthen her? And how do we set her on her path? In our story, there is a line. The master believed that he had the power to help himself and all mankind. And as he believed, so it was for him. Finding our inner savior, our inner Messiah, our inner master, begins with belief. Believing in yourself, and believing in yourself takes love. As the lyrics written by Michael Masser and sung by Whitney state, I found the greatest love of all inside of me. The greatest love of all is easy to achieve. Learning to love yourself, it is the greatest love of all. So finding that greatest love of all is where your Savior begins. Seeing yourself for the divine being that you are, and forgiving yourself for those times when you've given in to lower voices. Those of you who are parents, you know you don't stop loving your child because they did something that disappointed you. You need to see this inner savior as your own child, that part of you that you need to nurture and love implicitly. So the master believed, and in believing, he found that inner Messiah. He believed that he had the power. Now comes the hardest part. Nurturing, strengthening, growing this part of yourself. Again, a lot like being a parent, right? You need to be able to strengthen that connection. Build a relationship with your own divinity. Keep an eye on what you're feeding your soul. Realize that no one else can do this for you. There are people on your path who can help you, who can point you in the right direction. Help you when you get your internal GPS, to get your internal GPS straightened out when the voice says, wherever possible, make a U-turn. But don't let outside voices become your voice. Prayer, meditation, time in nature, quiet contemplation, that's what is needed at this juncture. When you hear something, whether it's the news or a Facebook post, take the time to measure it against your higher guidance. So once you help yourself, how do you get to the point where you can help all mankind? How do you free that inner savior? I didn't choose a great time to try and write this homily. Or maybe I chose the most important time. I don't know. But from a point of being able to just write and get this theme out, it's difficult. We're at a very pivotal period in history. As a planet, we're struggling right now. It seems like just as things are starting to get better, something else comes along. First it was COVID, then it was murder hornets. Now, I really don't know where they went, but believe me, I'm keeping a close eye on the wasps in my backyard. And next thing we know, it's racial tension. Okay, I'm not even sure that racial tension really defines what's going on right now. Maybe it's more like injustice tension. I feel like we're in a healing period and we're being reminded that there are things beneath our society, in our underbelly, that have never been addressed. There's more healing to be done than we realize. Across the planet, there are people who, whether it's because of the color of their skin, their religious beliefs, their economic status, or their sexual orientation, or even just their sex in general, these people have been placed into a situation where they do not start out on a level playing field in our society. What do I mean by that? In our metaphysical world, there are teachers, concepts, schools of thought that talk about raising your vibration, manifesting what it is that you want. And when you listen, the concept sounds so simple, although we all know it's a lot more work than it seems, right? But there are some people that society has weighted down, basically put lead shackles around their neck and a ball and chain around their wrists and ankles. So for those people to raise their vibration, to manifest, it takes even more work. Work that's well worth the effort and entirely doable if society doesn't continue to bat them down while they're trying. So, of course, in the midst of my contemplation for today's homily, the current state of unrest weighed heavy on my mind. I've reached a point where I passionately believe that by finding ourselves, by beginning the journey of ascension, we are contributing to making the world better. But as I was rolling this around in my head, it sounded almost trite to think that by concentrating on healing myself, I was in some way contributing to healing the world, a world that right now seems so broken. And then I heard, it is about the whole, Renee. It is about the whole. The more of us who look at ourselves, who do the work to understand ourselves and address those things that need to be addressed within ourselves, that inner savior, the stronger our society will be. The healthier we each become, the healthier the whole will be. Part of that work to freeing our inner savior is being willing to look at that within ourselves that needs to be healed. What are the things that I need to change in my own beliefs? And there's actually an easy answer to all of the world's problems. One common teaching that can solve all of our problems. What is that? ISD's Declaration of Principles, one that I just read to you, says, we believe that the highest morality is contained in the mandate, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This golden rule comes from Christian doctrine, but this theme itself, it's got to be pretty important because it's been echoed through time by ancient societies, philosophers, and of course, religious doctrine. There's an ancient Egyptian papyrus from around 634 to 323 BC that contains the saying, that which you hate to be done to you, do not do to another. From Buddhism, do not hurt others in ways you yourself would find hurtful. One should seek for others the happiness one desires for oneself. From Hinduism, this is the sum of duty. Do nothing to others that would cause you pain if done to you. Judaism, that which is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow. That is the whole Torah. The rest is commentary. Islam, none of you believes until he wishes for his brother what he wishes for himself. Baha'i, and if thine eyes be turned towards justice, choose thou for thy neighbor that which thou choosest for thyself. I could go on, but the last one that I'm going to give you is one of my favorites. American Indian tribes have also incorporated this mandate into their culture. The Shawnee's golden rule is do not kill or injure your neighbor, for it is not him that you injure yourself. But do good to him, therefore add to his days of happiness as you add to your own. The year 2020 may seem like it's about some divine punishment, something biblical like the great flood from the Old Testament. But maybe that's not what this is all about. If we look at it in the context of what we've just examined, maybe we are going through the stages of ascension, finding our inner savior as a society. COVID gave us the opportunity to see as a planet, to see who we truly are away from the noise and chaos of the outside world, to understand that there are no barriers between us, that the people in China are the people in the US, the people in Italy are the people in Canada. We put on masks not to still our voices, but to allow us time to heal without outside forces infecting us. Now we've stepped into the feeding, strengthening phase. It's time to realize that there are still some infections that need to be addressed. And the way that we address them is by starting at our own front door. We can only heal ourselves. And the more of us that are healed, the stronger the whole becomes. As one by one we learn to live by the golden rule, to love the way we wish to be loved, to treat everyone, not just those who believe or look or act the same as we do, with the respect that we know they deserve. If we remember that our core is love and that the manifestation of that love is our inner savior, that inner savior is activated by first giving ourselves permission to love ourselves. Then it's strengthened by nurturing or feeding that part of ourselves with healing, prayer, and meditation. And finally, allowing that savior out into the world by remembering the most important rule of all, to love everyone the way we love ourselves. Thank you.